don't know. It's not a great way to end this, but like, I guess in conclusion, do I think the Forever GM narrative is real? Yes. And even in ideal scenarios, would it still be real? Yes. But are there things that we can do right now as a community to skew those back in GM's favor? 100% yes. But to say that it doesn't exist, to say that like it's happening because it would happen like this anyway, like more people would want to be GMs forever, that shit's not true. Not for everybody, at least. And if that is you, don't assume that you're the majority, you know?
I mean, never assume you're the majority, that's for sure. I think part of the problem too is also that the concept of the Forever GM is framed very negatively when it doesn't inherently have to be a negative.
Well, I don't think that I think it's difficult to say that it's skewed negatively. It is a negative thing because it speaks to a greater underlying issue, which is burnout.
Well, you know, what I mean is that it's always framed in such a fashion that, oh, if you only GM and you never get to be a player, that is inherently bad, which is not the case. Because if somebody just doesn't have any desire and is perfectly fine with GMing all the time, then that's fine, right? Like, it has this default assumption that it's negative when it doesn't have to be negative. Like, I feel like focusing on the negative bit perpetuates the problem.
Oh, see, I've taken this from step one as an argument not of I'm a GM and I never get to play. It's I run more than I get to play, and I'm getting tired of running more than I get to play. I want to play as a player.
Right. If you're tired of it and you want to be a player, that's different. But I'm saying the community as a whole always frames this statement in a negative light. And making it always framed in a negative light makes it worse. Like, basically saying that being a Forever GM is bad makes people feel bad about GMing. And then if they've GM'd for a long period of time, they start to feel almost like a weird subconscious guilt about it. And then that puts it in like a weird perpetual cycle.
Interesting. Okay, so you are actually kind of agreeing with OP here when he like they talked about having like doubt or doubting themselves.
A little bit. I'm not saying that it's always good or always bad. I'm just saying people should be careful about framing it negative by default. Because I feel like I always see when somebody brings up the phrase Forever GM, they almost always mean it as a bad thing. I very rarely, if ever, see anyone say, I'm a Forever GM, but I like it that way. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, so I think it kind of is innately a bad thing when you look at it from the perspective of it's just another way of saying GM burnout.
If it's another way of saying, well, yeah, that's the thing.
How
right?
Every person I've ever spoken to who are like, you know, I'm the Forever GM. That's the like, I really wish one of my players would fucking step up so I can be a player for once. That's, yeah. I would go as far as to say that is how it is most of the time. It's not that GMing a lot is bad. It's not that like, it's that GMs are saying there aren't enough people who are willing to play as GMs, and I want to be a player. If you don't want to be a player, you're not really part of that argument. You're not really part of that conundrum. And I think people lump them together, which I think is what OP's problem is.
I guess what I'm saying is, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm sort of erring on a little bit of an agreement with them. I guess what I'm saying is that I don't like that GM burnout and Forever GM are becoming synonymous. I feel like that is a bad habit.
That I can agree with.
Like, they shouldn't be as synonymous as they are.
But I also don't think, like, I think Forever GM began as a phrase to shorthand GM burnout. I think that was the inception of the idea of Forever GM, of someone who's been thrust in the position of running a game and probably did really like it at the start. But it's the monotony of being like, all right, guys, we just finished the campaign. What are we doing next? And then it's crickets, and it's like, no one wants to run anything. And it's more crickets, and you go, all right, fine, I'll fucking figure it out.
Yeah,
I mean, so you know what? I think we should change the name. You have Forever GMs, derogatory, and then you have a career GM.
Non-derogatory.
Yeah, affectionate.
Yeah,
you have career GM, affectionate, and Forever GM, derogatory.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I guess that's probably true. Yeah, probably it was born as a shorthand. I could certainly see that. I mean, I don't know. I don't think you had any suggestions to how to fix the problem, right? Because I do feel like we should perhaps offer.
Oh no! I mean, I brought them up a little bit. First things first. Play different games. Read different games. That's ultimately what 99.9999998% things come down to. If you don't like running a game, how many games do you know about running? If the answer is just D&D, read more fucking games.
Yeah, if you look at other games, there's a good chance you will not feel as burnt out as a GM if you find a game that jives with you better and how you run.
Inversely, as a player, you should also be reading rule books, because they're a guarantee you
to find a game you might want to run.
Yeah, who never wants to run a game will find one that's literally Moon. She's gonna run Kane in a few weeks. Like,
yeah,
it's doable. Right. You just gotta find the right thing.
That was the one. Yes, that was the one. That was the main suggestion I was gonna give, is that looking at other GMs. What? Looking at other games will get your GM hackles a going, because there's a good chance you will find a game that just jives with you better. Again, this feeds back to that problem of everybody assuming that the fantasy dungeon fucker game is the only kind of game in town because D&D is the king, and so everyone just assumes that's how all tabletop games are, when there are in fact many tabletop games out there. There's tabletop games about being a fucking guy in an office, and there's tabletop games about being angry lesbians in a dungeon, and there's tabletop games about running robots, and there's tabletop games about dying to the horrible manifestations of sin-filled monsters. You got lots of options out there.
You know what's funny? There's a PBTA game about being a professional wrestler. I can't remember what it's called.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm also blanking on the name, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
I low-key would play it. I'd play in this. If you ran it, I'd play it for sure.
Yes.
And to be fair, Luna's also a professional wrestler on the indie circuit, so I know he could do it well.
Yes. Oh God, what is that game called? Wrestling. I know. Of course, I've Worldwide Wrestling.
Yes.
Worldwide Wrestling. That's the one you're looking for. Yeah, of course I've heard of that game. What a surprise. Anyway, yeah, there's games about fucking everything under the sun that isn't just fantasy dungeon fucking. So yeah, look at other shit. The other option, if you are the Forever GM, derogatory in this scenario, and nobody else is that interested in running a different game other than D&D, but you really want to be a player, just hold your players hostage.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is finish the campaign, look your players in the eye and go, okay, we're done now. If you guys want to keep playing, someone else has to run because I need a break. I'm not running anything. End of discussion. If we want to keep playing, one of you guys can run something and I'll be a player, but I'm not running anything. No questions asked. I'm not running anything after this campaign is over. And you just hold them hostage, and you'd be surprised because you got to think about statistically, if you have 4 people at the table, good chance one of them will step up, right? 1 in 4 chance, not bad odds. So sometimes just hold those motherfuckers hostage, because when your back's against the wall and you have no choice and you really want to fucking play D&D, you're like, fuck it, I will run it this time. I'm not saying you should do that every time, but it's absolutely an option to put in your back pocket, obviously. And, you know, frame it nicely. I don't know. Well, maybe not. I don't know. You know your players. Maybe you should frame it like an asshole, but frame it in a way that your players will be receptive to it. Let's put it that way.
Now, you might say, what if no one wants to play? Because there's literally a post. There's a comment under this post about, I told my players I didn't want to run, and then they all ghosted me.
Mm-hmm.
You can just get unlucky. That is a possibility.
It is. I would argue, I'm going to be honest, I would argue if you have a group where you're the GM and you say, all right, guys, campaign is done. This is assuming that you ended the campaign with a satisfying conclusion, right? Like, we're not assuming that things sputtered out or you burnt out and gave up or anything. We're assuming you had like a proper end of story arc campaign conclusion. If you have that conclusion and you look at your players and say, all right, the campaign's over, I'm not running anything for a while, so if anybody else, if you guys want to keep playing, somebody else has to run, and they just get you, they just respond to you with crickets, might not be for the group for you, Chief.
Yeah.
Might need to look for another group. I'm gonna be honest. If they respond with crickets, might need to look for some new homies.